Hi dear children, a wonderful day to all. How are you? Hope you are all fine now. The other day we were dealing with footprints without feet. The first lesson we were discussing about, it was the memories of a doctor named Dr. James Harriot, and he was a professional veterinary surgeon, and he was mentioning about an experience which he had when he was being a professional as a veterinary surgeon. And here in the story, the main character was a pet dog named Tricky, and the second character was the mistress of the dog Tricky. Her name was Mrs. Pumphrey, and the third character was Dr. James Harriot himself. Hope you remember all the characters. And then what was going on? Tricky was too much fond of chocolates and cream cakes, and whatever he wanted, Mrs. Pumphrey was very much loving to give that much to Tricky the dog, right? So what happened in this sudden, Tricky became fat every day and was too weak. And one day, Dr. James Harriot advised Mrs. Pumphrey to reduce his meals and reduce all those items of food which she was giving over. Mrs. Pumphrey said of course she was trying, but at the same time she said she cannot deny the fact that Tricky loved all those food items and she was not ready to refuse his whatever he likes. And she never wanted to say no to the poor creature. So what happens? Tricky became ill, and let us see whether Tricky will be okay. Now we have seen in the previous day that Dr. James Harriot has taken him to the hospital, into his clinic, and was starting the treatment. Let us see whether Tricky will be alright, whether he will be able to live happily with his mistress. And we are going to the lesson. We will continue with the next paragraph.
They were days of deep content, starting well with the extra egg in the morning, improved and sustained by the midday wine, and finishing luxuriously round the fire with the brandy.
Now, altogether the day for the doctor and his team, the colleagues, the family, it was quite enjoyable because the day was beginning with eggs, fresh eggs, and for the lunch they were having enough and more wine, and the day was ended with a brandy on the fire space. It was quite wonderful for them. He might have thought that he did not want to send the dog back to his mistress, right? Because he was getting such a good treatment. Actually, it was all sent to Tricky, but the doctor was very sure that he cannot give it all to him. So he was enjoying it with his family and patrons.
It was a temptation to keep Tricky on as a permanent guest, but I knew Mrs. Pumphrey was suffering, and after a fortnight felt compelled to phone and tell her that the little dog had recovered and was awaiting collection.
Okay, for the beginning, Dr. James Harriot also was feeling that he don't want to send the dog back and wanted to keep it as a permanent guest in his home. But he was very sure about the tension, the feeling of Mrs. Pumphrey, and after 2 weeks, he was forced to call Mrs. Pumphrey and say that the dog was almost okay and was ready to be taken back by the mistress. Okay, now what doctor said was the dog is okay, he has recovered from his illness and you can take it back home now. That's what Dr. James Harriot asked Mrs. Pumphrey to do. What will be the reaction of Mrs. Pumphrey? She was eagerly waiting to hear that from James Harriot, isn't it? Let's see what is going to happen there. Now we'll go for the next paragraph.
Within minutes, about 30 feet of gleaming black metal drew up outside the surgery. The chauffeur opened the door, and I could just make out the figure of Mrs. Pumphrey almost lost in the interior. Her hands were tightly clasped in front of her. Her lips trembled. "Oh, Mr. Harriot, do tell me the truth. Is he really better?"
Now listen, in another few minutes, as we expected, Mrs. Pumphrey was there on his doorsteps, and the door was opened there. Dr. James Harriot could see Mrs. Pumphrey, and in a sudden she asked a question to Dr. James Harriot, and it was, "Are you sure that my dog, my pet is really all right?" That was the question. That question was already expected by Dr. James Harriot also, because when he was carrying the dog from her home, he could remember what was the condition, and he was very sure about the poor dog's pathetic condition. Now, she could not imagine that the dog will get recovered in such a faster way. She never wanted to know what treatment he had done on him, but at the same time, she wanted to make sure that the dog was okay, perfectly all right. Let us see what the doctor says.
"Yes, he's fine. There's no need for you to get out of the car. I'll go and fetch him."
Now doctor said, "Of course, he's all right. He's completely all right now. And you don't want to get out of the car. You can wait inside the car. I'll go and take him to you." The doctor asked Mrs. Pumphrey to wait in the car. He said that he'll go and take the dog to her. Let's see.
I walked through the house into the garden. A mass of dogs was hunting around and round the lawn, and in their midst, ears flapping, tail waving, was the little golden figure of Tricky. In 2 weeks, he had been transformed into a little hard-muscled animal. He was keeping up well with the pack, stretching out in great bounds, his chest almost brushing the ground.
Listen, in a sudden, when doctor asked Mrs. Pumphrey to sit in the car, he just turned and went to the nearby courtyard, a place where the dogs were playing each other, and there he could see the dog, Mrs. Pumphrey's loving pet. Tricky was there in the middle of the other dogs who were playing, fighting and doing all the pranks. Right? Now we can see the appearance of the dog here. How is he now? He is really healthy and strong with very energetic, powerful muscles. And that he was having a lot of changes from what he was when he reached in the clinic. Right? He was such a hard-muscled and strong animal. Now it is very sure that he will not be like the old Tricky anymore, and he will be that energetic because he is very energetic and very healthy now. Doctor made him to be like that. Right? He gave enough and more time for Tricky to play and make his muscles strong and make his energy doubled. Now let us see what will be their reaction when the mistress sees the pet and how the pet reacts to his mistress.
I carried him back along the passage to the front of the house. The chauffeur was still holding the car door open, and when Tricky saw his mistress, he took off from my arms in a tremendous leap and sailed into Mrs. Pumphrey's lap. She gave a startled "oh," and then had to defend herself as he swarmed over her, licking her face and barking.
Now listen, in a sudden, doctor caught the dog, Tricky, and he started walking through the way to the front. Till that time, the driver was opening the door and waiting for doctor to come with the pet. In a sudden, when the poor dog saw its mistress, it was really amazed, surprised and very happy. And the dog jumped into and started licking on her face and was barking in happiness after seeing her after a long time, made him to be really happy. How long was she far away from his mistress? Fortnight, 2 weeks, right? A fortnight, he was far away from his mistress, and he missed all the love, the care, the pampering from his mistress. And all those things he is getting back right now, and she was really, what we will say, amused, but surprised to see it as such a strong and healthy dog. She could not even believe her eyes for a short while.
During the excitement, I helped the chauffeur to bring out the beds, toys, cushions, cots, and balls, none of which had been used. As the car moved away, Mrs. Pumphrey leaned out of the window. Tears shone in her eyes. Her lips trembled.
When they were in an excitement, the mistress and the pet were in their excitement. They were enjoying that moment. At that time, the servant helped Dr. Harriot to carry all those things. The turkeys, the towels were there, the bed sheet were there, the coats were there, the toys were there. Everything which were kept there without any use. Till these days, all these fortnight, all these 14 days, Tricky had not even looked at any of those things. He was busy playing with the other dogs. So, all those things were taken back from home by James Harriot and the servant. And they took it back to Tricky and mistress and taken it back to the car. Now, in a sudden, Mrs. Pumphrey turned out to the window of the car, and then she was too much excited and happy to see that her pet is really healthy and strong than what she was imagining about it. So she was really happy, and what we will say, in such an emotion, she could not even talk too much, but her lips were moving, shivering, and that showed the feeling, the emotion in her mind was too deep and coming from her heart only. And she was in tears also.
"Oh, Mr. Harriot," she cried, "how can I ever thank you? This is a triumph of surgery."
Then Mrs. Pumphrey was in tears, and she was not even able to convey her feelings, but she said, "Oh, my dear Harriot, how can I thank you? How can I say my heartful thanks to you? Because you have done such a wonderful work and you have saved my pet." That was the words of Mrs. Pumphrey, and we can imagine that Mrs. Pumphrey was taking Tricky back, and they will be enjoying their life, right? And here ends the lesson. During the interaction session, I will come up with the questions and with the answers also. Hope you all have the textbook with you. If you don't have it, make sure that you are using the PDF which I have shared. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.